Hello everyone, let's now welcome to the stage Elsa Adriana Restrepo, Adjunct Professor at Universidad de Antioquia, and Edgar Picon Jacome, Research Coordinator of the School of Languages at Universidad de Antioquia.
Everybody, how are you? I hope you are doing so well. Thank you for being here, sharing with us.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our presentation. And thank you very much for attending it. Okay, I think I'm sharing right now. Please let me know if you're sharing.
Am I sharing?
Sorry. I think no. I'm going to share.
No, I am doing it. Sorry.
Oh, you're doing it. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I'm doing it. Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Ready.
But I don't know if you are sharing right now. Are you?
Let me know.
I don't see your presentation. I don't see the presentation. So.
Am I presenting, please? Where is the host?
So because I can do it. Let me try to do it, Adri.
I was sharing. Okay, do it.
Well, what happens is I got lost a little bit. I thought they were going to. Okay. I think I am right now sharing, right? Am I? Okay.
Please present the version presentation, please.
Yes.
Wider.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Continue, please.
Yeah. Purpose, I guess.
I will start. Okay. Our purpose in this presentation is to make emphasis on fairness for the test. So we will share our experience in administering and designing tests targeted to certify professionals' foreign language competence in a public university. Go ahead. Okay, next.
Okay, so this is a narrative, and so we wanted to have sort of conversation with the audience. So this is what we have planned for today. First, we're going to introduce ourselves a little bit in a more personal way. Then we talk about antecedents, our definition and interpretation of fairness, and how we follow this principle as our mission, and then how we connect the theory and practice in terms of fairness. Finally, what we are doing right now and some conclusions.
Next. Well, who am I? I'm a mother. I love literature and nature and life as a whole. And touched by this quietness because I consider I'm very sensitive, and that is part of why I started working on this.
Yes, we decided to do this introduction in a more personal way because we believe it's important to know a little bit of people's lives in order to understand why people do things. So in my case, I consider myself, first of all, a father as well. I'm an artist in many ways. I consider myself a good friend. I am a teacher researcher. And in terms of research, I have a pragmatist point of view. And I also consider myself a daydreamer.
Well, let us hear. Go ahead, Edgar.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, we did this exercise to see how much we, let's say, know the other person. So we both, and then we shared whether we were actually interested in and had these common ideas about life. So we both are interested in social justice. We both have been involved in research on teacher assessment practices. We both have realized the negative impact that testing might have on people's lives. And in the case of Elsa, will you explain a little bit that?
Okay. I started teaching for the test. And then that led me to identify my thesis starting point because I noticed discomfort among the candidates, among the students. They failed the test several times, and I thought I have to do something for improving this situation. That is what is called concrete utopia.
Okay, in my case, I found myself in the position of evaluating people at the School of Languages because of my my position in the School of Languages as part of what we call as a Servicios department, which is in charge of the language policy of the University of Antioquia in general terms. So probably we forgot because of the certain problem we had with technical issues at the very beginning to tell you that this happens in a public university in Colombia, in the city of Medellin, is Universidad de Antioquia. And we're going to talk about what we have done, that's why it is a narrative, in what we call a domestic testing center. So we were invited to coordinate this domestic testing center at a certain point. And what we are sharing today is what we did in order to pursue fairness. So in a way, we saw an opportunity to change things for good, even though we're not really that much, or we were not at that point that much interested in testing, actually. Some antecedents important to share with you is that this happened within the context of language policy, of course. So on the one hand, we had the internationalization of internationalization policy of the university, responding to external pressures, such as, for example, becoming part of the COD group, and also the internally in Colombia, the policy that was called Colombia bilingual Colombia, that has made efforts from the Minister of Education to support the development of communicative competence in English mainly. So consequently, the university also has been changing policies, language policies, in order to align with these other policies. So, and there were two local studies that we're going to refer to that had an important impact in our lives, and afterwards in what we did in the center. So the first one was a critical analysis of the foreign language policy of Universidad de Antioquia. Elsa will talk about that. And the other one is an internal formative evaluation of the foreign language policy for the graduate programs of the university, in which we both were involved.
Well, in this study, I examined the purpose of the language policy. And doing that, I found out that the certification test was the main mechanism for sustaining the language policy. And considering that the certification tests impact on individuals' lives, the institutions, education programs, and the society as a whole, I realized about the power of the test. And then I started considering test taker voices, and I found out tensions and discomfort. I was inspired by Shohamy's words. By listening to the voices of the test takers, it is possible to obtain evidence of the power of tests and the detrimental decisions they lead to for the test takers. There were several findings. However, this was one of the most important ones. And you see, for a teacher to access for a full teaching position, they have to present the test, the certification test. And according to the balance that you see, that is not well balanced. However, it is a paradox, because the candidate could have had a high qualification, a curriculum vitae, could have had a meaningful, valuable research proposal, being an expert in a specific discipline, having been very well evaluated. However, that doesn't weigh so much as the test, because if he or she failed the test, simply was not accepted. Is that unfair? I think it is, yes. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, and in the second study, we were both involved. I led the study, actually. And the purpose of the general objective was to evaluate the foreign language and second language policy for the Universidad de Antioquia graduate programs and its implementation in order to adjust it and take actions to improve it. And we collected data from different sources of information, stakeholders mainly, in different positions, and we also carried out a document analysis. So the sources of information included interviews from the vice rector for teaching in 2011. That was the time in which we carried out this study. The directors of the School of Languages, the two last directors at the time, and the Services Program Committee and the University Graduate Committee as well. And we also surveyed both deans from the programs and students that were at the time studying in different programs. The findings corroborated many of the things that the study that ELSA carried out found. So there was emphasis on certification through testing only, and the standards at that point and the test construct somehow were disconnected from the needs. We need the use of the EFL of candidates in their academic lives and the reality, because there were deficiencies of previous formation in the foreign language of the academic community, and the standards were very high for these conditions, which were the reality of people there at the university. And we found also some ethical issues, like, for example, accepting PhD candidates without enough level and previous formation in the foreign language when requirements for graduation establish a high level of proficiency. So the candidates for those programs only needed to certify reading comprehension, but then in order to graduate, they needed to certify communicative competence in general terms. So there was a high index of candidates who did not reach the standards, and therefore many graduate cohorts were negatively impacted, especially in certain areas of knowledge. And there were many candidates that had finished their studies but could not graduate.
Well,
so in order to link or the theory and practice, we're going to present our own definition of fairness. So we follow fairness as a principle that in testing implies a quality of, let's say, the test itself. In other words, a work well done. Also equity rather than equality, that in testing we consider connected to contextualizing the test. Believing in social justice, because this is a way for many people in society to continue projects of their lives, and ethics that we consider in this case from Davis 2008 and 2017, who states that stakeholders, test designers should follow the ontological perspective in testing, following Kant, which gives foundation to the importance of watching its intrinsic quality. So that's why when we talk about fairness, we talk about the quality of the test on the one side, but on the other side, from a teleological perspective, following Hobbes, it means as well reminding the test designers the responsibility to watch the consequences of the test.
Well, from the ontological, as Edgar said, from a deontological perspective, we took into consideration the test qualities that is conveyed by the notion of test usefulness. I will not define all of these qualities. I think that you are familiarized with them, but anyways, if at the end you have any question, we will be willful to explain them. So those qualities that we analyze in our test in order to prompt them are constructability, reliability, authenticity, interactiveness, impact that involves washband, practicality. We consider also content validity and face validity according to Brown, and transparency according to Arias et al. And from a theological perspective, the compensation of the qualities depends on assessment context and purposes. So being conscious not only of the intrinsic characteristics of the test, but also on the social dimension of testing, we're working on validation from a holistic perspective. And so these quotes are very significant for us. Testing as a field has been relatively handicapped in understanding itself as a social practice. Messi states test constructs embody values with social and political meaning, and test use has social consequences. And Kane asserts that inference we draw about candidates on the basis of test scores are often poor. So we have to keep in mind that for designing tests. And our mission is to reach fairness for stakeholders. How? From traditional testing focus on the test to testing focus on the test taker. So we have to consider, on one hand, the traditional testing that implies the internal characteristics, the intrinsic characteristics of the test, quality tests that can accurately measure the test taker's knowledge, but also how the test is used, use-oriented testing. So that is consistent to what the candidates really need. But also, we are not just measuring, we are also providing our candidates to formation, to courses, several kinds of courses, to undergraduate students, to graduate students, to teachers, to administrators in foreign language, and not only in English, but also in other languages. So we are moving toward formation rather than the use of exam. And we adapted the matrix, the matrix matrix, considering that there are two factors really important: test interpretation and test use social consequences. So we have to take into account evidential basis, but also consequential basis. And these make us think of these questions all the time. What reasoning and empirical evidence support the claims we wish to make about candidates based on their performance? Are these interpretations meaningful, useful, and fair in particular context? And from the consequential basis, what social and cultural values and assumptions underline test constructs and hence the sense we make of scores? What happens in our education systems and the larger social context when we use tests?
So in order to apply for testing in practice, we also have followed these ideas from McNamara and Roever, 2006, that it implies quality management in test design, administration, and scoring, that it also implies adequate coverage of relevant content, sufficient construct validation work, equal learning opportunities, and access to testing, and also items measuring only the skill or ability under investigation without being unduly influenced by construct irrelevant variance introduced through test taker background factors.
Well, we started constituting a study group, and in that study group, we talk about our own beliefs, knowledge, and experience about what and how to test individuals' foreign language proficiency. So you know that there are diverse opinions, and it's important to get common criteria. We discuss about language view because, you know, as many language view perspectives you find, as many ways of testing language. And we work and study about the construct, ability construct, in order to define the construct in the test. This we study the CF-EFR from a critical viewpoint. We analyze the already designed tests we had that were more related to standards for internationalization, but not contextualized, as we had said before. And study the qualities and principles and put them into practice. So we designed a guideline or some guidelines for the reading comprehension exam, the listening comprehension exam, and the communicative competence exam. And how we bridged theory into practice. So initially, it's a paramount to take into consideration test takers' needs, interests, and particularities. So we survey some candidates before, meanwhile, and after the test in order to continue improving it. And we made sure that the purpose of the test and the use of the test were pertinent, meet the candidate's needs. And of course, review again the characteristics, the intrinsic characteristics of the test, define the construct depending on the tax and depending on the use of the test. And we made sure that the language test, the language tax in the test was consistent to the language used in real situations, that the candidates were familiarized with those taxes concerning the use of language and the topic as well. Of course, we also consider external factors that can affect the candidate's performance, such as physical setting, access, participants, all the people involved, time of task, light, noise level, etc.
Oh, okay. As well, it is important to tell you that the characteristics of the test tasks at the end were the result of many of these aspects that we have found important to take into account. In a way, for example, in the second study, we found also, as we did in the survey, the actual use that the candidates had for their life. So that affected how we designed the tasks, for example, right? It affected instructions and prompts, the authenticity of the task. Like to give you an example, the writing task is was in the beginning an argumentative essay, and then it has become a reaction paper. Like taking into account what actually these people from the academic community of the university need actually to develop and therefore to certify. So aspects such as the time that we give for people for the test takers to complete the test were important for us. So we pilot our test, keeping in mind that time was enough and it didn't become like an irrelevant factor affecting the construct. And in general terms, topics choice and graduation of authentic tests taken from academic real, we cannot actually take into account the specific use for every one of the fields of knowledge in the not at least not yet of the university, but then we try to find tests that are in general terms from the academic realm. Interactiveness is influenced by those aspects as well. And okay, I already talked about the genre and the length of the test. So we design rubrics. This is part of what we have done our work, taking into account those contextualization we've done from the CFR descriptors. And we designed some validation protocols and continued to train raters to use the instruments that we've been designing. So in the first study group, there was a group of designers that have continued to work with us, and we continue to train the people that evaluate also the test takers. Another way that we have another strategy that we have implemented in order to watch the impact of the test is the survey. And the survey included some questions in order to evaluate the validity of the test, what Brown calls face validity, from perception from the test takers. At the beginning, we included questions about the use of the real use they have of English or the other languages, because we test in different languages in their academic lives, and many of the questions as well are related to those principles that Elsa mentioned before. And these are examples that from the questions. Some of the questions that we have included in the survey. Adri, if you want to explain this one. Adri? I can hear you at all. I don't know if I'm out. Hello. I don't know what happened. Okay, we're having technical problems here. Hello. Hello. Luisa, I don't know what happened. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm afraid we're experiencing some technical issues with Professor Adriana.
Okay, probably she had problems with her internet. Can you tell me what the point at which we were, so I can continue by myself with the presentation? I don't know why are we seeing this way, the presentation? Is it?
At this moment, we are like seeing like a mirror. We are not watching the presentation.
You think it's possible that she was presenting at the same time I did? But let me see if I can tell her. The problem is that I cannot continue with the presentation the way it is, the way the people are seeing it. Is there anything you can do in order to help me out to present again? Because I stopped presenting.
Yes. Do you have the slides?
I have the slides, yes, but I stopped presenting, but it's not working. I don't know if you can help me. I stopped my presentation. I'm not presenting anymore right now. Okay. I don't know why this is showing. I'm not presenting. Is there a way? Maybe I have to go out.
Let's try again then.
Okay, there you go. Okay, so I can present again now, if it is possible. It tells me to stop. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Please tell me now when you see my presentation again.
Now I can.
Okay. Okay. So probably we were. I don't know how much the audience hear this part. Probably the most important part. But that's how we try to bridge that gap between theory and practice in terms of actually designing the test, taking into account all those principles in the actual design of the test. And what we also do is to survey people, to survey the test takers in order to find out their perceptions about the test, the aspects such as, for example, the physical conditions, the equipment, and whether they have been affected by physical conditions when they take the test, or also to find out the use of the language. Those are questions that we have included in the survey. And those questions help us to make adjustments to the test. So these are just some samples of them. I'm going to go over them quickly. This is, I think we found it interesting to show to the people that many people are thankful for what we do, and they let us know when they answer the survey. So they thanked us for taking them into account for asking them about their perceptions, for our support in many ways. And also, I think it is important to share that there are certain changes being made in the policy of the university. So the academic agreement for 93 established new routes of certification, which was very important. Like the test takers or the candidates for programs, for graduate programs, could also certify now in certain courses. So they were taken into account as certification routes. And also that it was established, B1, the minimum level of proficiency required. And we consider it was fair as well for the candidates, because the previous standards were higher than that. And maybe it is important also to tell you that there was also a change in the policy for the graduate programs, which means that they before had only reading comprehension, and now we have a course which is communicative course in general terms, so that people in the community of the university in the undergraduate programs can also form themselves to have better conditions if they want to enter the university graduate programs. We keep on working. Right now, we have a grant to improve the conditions of the testing unit, to acquire new equipment. The pandemic has affected everybody, also us, and we have been facing the need to administer testing online. We're doing it using the Moodle platform, but we now have some money to invest on another platform. And we're also going to start conducting research. And there is a new study we're about to start. We've been working on creating a C1 test. We didn't have a C1 before, and it's going to be a mixed method interdisciplinary study in which we're going to validate that test both from a qualitative and a quantitative perspective. And we're also going to apply the critical language testing. Those are ideas from Elena Shohamy to wash consequential validity of the test, and finally connect what we do to the sustainable development goals of also that the Colombia are taken into account in general terms. And we're freeing data for research purposes at the UDA, for not only for our field of knowledge, but for other fields of knowledge. So in conclusion, we have that pursuing fairness in testing implies being critical, that it means placing ourselves in the shoes of the other, that it requires studying and conducting research, and also requires patience and convincing policymakers. It demands the seek of a constant balance between practicality and validity, and it also requires to believe that it can be possible. So in a way, it requires for people to create in what Elsa called a utopic possible utopia. We're going to leave this, or I'm going to leave this for the audience to read it, and we open for questions if we have time. I don't know how much time we have.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. We are just done with our session. We don't have any more time to questions. Thank you very much.